Welcome to The Explainer. Our whole goal here is to take today's really complex headlines and turn them into a clear, visual story that, actually makes sense.
So have you ever wondered just how much can happen in a single day? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're taking a rapid trip across the globe to see what shaped our world in just 24 hours on February 26th, 2026.
All right, first stop, Washington, D.C. A place where, let's be honest, the long shadow of a past scandal is stirring up some brand new political fights.
So what's happening here isn't just one single investigation. No. You've got two separate probes running at the same time, and they are split right down party lines. You see, on one side, a Republican-led panel is digging into the Clintons' ties, and on the other, Democrats are putting the Department of Justice itself under the microscope for how it's handled the files. It's a classic political playbook, really.
And wow, after hours of closed-door testimony on the 26th, Hillary Clinton came out swinging. She absolutely did not hold back, calling the whole thing a partisan political circus. She made it really clear she believes it's all about politics and denied knowing anything about Epstein's crimes.
At the very same time, another fight is brewing. This time, it's House Democrats pointing the finger at the Department of Justice. They're saying the DOJ is illegally holding back FBI interviews that apparently involve accusations against Donald Trump. Now, the DOJ is pushing back, saying the records are privileged, but Democrats are insisting that some really important testimony is being kept under wraps on purpose.
And just to give you a sense of the scale here, we're talking about more than 3 million pages of documents. 3 million. I mean, that sheer mountain of paper is exactly why this story just won't go away. It creates this endless source of material for both sides to dig through, keeping the political fires burning years later.
Okay, so let's shift gears now. We're moving from a political battle in Washington to a very real, very physical conflict. We're heading thousands of miles away to the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, where a crisis was escalating in real time.
Any hope for peace here just shattered in a matter of hours. The whole thing kicked off in the morning with Pakistani airstrikes hitting suspected militant hideouts inside Afghanistan. Well, the Taliban's response? It was fast and it was big. They launched what they called a large-scale retaliatory operation. And just like that, the situation exploded into open fighting all along that massive border.
And as you'd expect in a chaotic situation like this, getting the real story is, well, it's tough. Both sides are putting out these casualty numbers that are just worlds apart. Pakistan is claiming they took out over 100 Taliban fighters with very few losses of their own. The Taliban, on the other hand, says they inflicted numerous casualties on the Pakistanis, and this is a big point, that civilians were hurt in those first airstrikes.
So what's this all really about? Well, this isn't some random fight that came out of nowhere. It's tied to this long-simmering issue. At its core, Pakistan believes that the Taliban government in Kabul is letting TTP militants, that's the Pakistani Taliban, use their territory as a safe haven to launch attacks. And for their part, the Taliban has just flat-out denied this accusation time and time again.
So, while that border was literally on fire, a completely different kind of international dance was happening elsewhere. Let's pivot now to the world of high-stakes diplomacy, where a couple of countries are making some really interesting moves to try and change how they deal with the U.S.
First up, Venezuela. And this is a huge shift. After the ouster of Nicolas Maduro, the country's new interim leader is basically setting up a flare, signaling a massive change in direction. She's not just talking about talking. She's asking the U.S. to lift sanctions and even calling the two nations friends. That's a big deal.
And look, this isn't just empty rhetoric. They're actually backing it up with action. The new government has already pushed through an amnesty law for political prisoners and officially asked the U.S. to end sanctions. And it seems to be working, at least a little bit. The U.S. has started to ease some of those sanctions on the oil trade in response.
Okay, now at the same time, clear across the globe, another leader was making headlines. Kim Jong-un in North Korea also seemed to be opening the door to better relations. But, and this is a big but, his offer came with a major catch, a real deal breaker.
And when you put these two side by side, the difference is just night and day, right? On one hand, you have Venezuela essentially saying, hey, help us with our democratic transition and we can be friends. And then you have North Korea, which is basically dictating terms, saying, recognize us as a nuclear power first, and then maybe we can talk about peace. Two totally different playbooks.
All right, for our last snapshot of the day, we're heading to Senegal. And what's happening there is shining a really bright light on a major and often uncomfortable global divide when it comes to human rights.
So,
What's going on? Well, the government there is pushing a new bill that would make existing laws much, much harsher. We're talking about doubling the maximum prison sentence for same-sex relations, from 5 years all the way up to 10.
But it doesn't even stop there. The bill also wants to make it illegal to advocate for same-sex relations. I mean, think about that. You could face years in prison just for speaking out. As you can imagine, this has drawn a clear line in the sand. You've got local religious associations supporting it, while human rights groups are, of course, condemning it. And all of this is happening right after a recent crackdown on LGBTQ individuals.
Now, to understand why this is such a big deal, we have to zoom out a bit. What's happening in Senegal isn't happening in a vacuum. It kind of reflects a broader trend across the continent. I mean, look at the numbers. Out of 54 nations in Africa, only one, South Africa, has actually legalized same-sex marriage.
But, and this is really important, that doesn't mean everyone is moving in the same direction. The story is more complicated than that. While the overall trend might seem restrictive, you have countries like Botswana, Angola, and Mozambique that have actually moved to decriminalize same-sex acts. So it's creating this really complex patchwork legal situation across the continent. So, there you have it. From political battles in Washington to actual battles in Asia. From nations trying to start over to others drawing hard lines on human rights, all of that happened in just one day. It really shows you just how fast things can change and how connected everything is. That was February 26th. What will tomorrow bring?